All right, let me know. Don't be afraid. You could just tell me like with your hand, or tell me.
You'll find
because
this.
I like to get relaxed, so I'll make sure I'll be here.
You will find that I am most fearless when I am hosting.
I got you.
I'm fairly polite otherwise, but most of the time it's usually wrangling cats and being like, just like your guy. What's up, everybody? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Sparsa, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. We have an excellent guest here today. We'll get to him in a second, but first, to business. If you guys are watching this right now, I would love it if you could like, comment, and subscribe. Now, you would think those things aren't important, but apparently they are very important. In fact, they're kind of the currency of this business. So if you have no idea what you want to comment on, I will give you a prompt by the end of this show. So stay tuned if you have none. Additionally, if you want to support the show and you want to see these interviews 30 days before anybody else, you can go to my Patreon at patreon.com/grappling hour. But Raph, what do I get at patreon.com/grappling hour? Well, for $5 a month, you see the interviews 30 days before anybody else. For a few extra dollars, you could see tape studies. So we do them with the athletes where they tell us what they did in their fights and their matches. And that ranges from people who have been in the UFC to local fights to Bellator and whatever the hell PFL is these days. I really don't know what that is. I know Bellator and PFL are essentially the same thing because of the merger and whatnot. It's just, I don't think the fighters sometimes know. You'll be like, are you a PFL or a Bellator fighter? They're like, dog, I'm whatever the paycheck says. That's what I am. So there is that. So go to patreon.com/grappling hour. Last couple of reminders. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. You can check us out there. We have new broadcasts going up all the time. And if you like the Grappling Hour and you want to buy like a t-shirt or you want to buy a hoodie, some of you compete. And when you compete, you want to stay warm. Nothing is warmer than the Grappling Hour hoodie. So go check that out. That is rafasparza.com/merch. And last but not least, go check us out on our Discord at Grappling Hour. All right. Our guest. What do I say about this young man? I mean, he's right next to me. And
How are you doing?
I'm very well. But I have to compliment you because I had the opportunity to watch this young man's fight over at SparStar. I commentated that fight. It was the last fight of the evening, and yet you left us on such a high mark. It was such a fun fight, and I could see a very bright future for you. I could see that you have a good technique. You have a great system here over at King's MMA in Anaheim. And it made me say, you know what? Let's get to know you better. So please welcome, for the very first time on the show, Joshua Brown. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. What a night that was. It was a good night. You know, you only get so many of those, especially in the fight world. I mean, I'm young in my career, but I've been competing a long time. I have probably 1,000 wrestling matches or so. I don't even know how many.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I know wrestlers have a lot of at-bats. So sometimes when people are like, are you nervous? They're like, I've been nervous before. Now this is a job. This is part of the gig. So that's good. We were mentioning this kind of off air when we were talking and I was setting up, but did we mistake you at all on the broadcast? And if so, what was the mistake we were making? Because I'm sure you heard the commentary that we did.
No, you didn't really, guys, mistake me. I mean, I found it as a compliment when you said, is this guy from Dagestan in 30 pro fights? I mean, that's a compliment.
It is
It's
a
not
compliment.
really a mistake. And I know my beard might make it look like I am one, but no, I'm an American wrestling all day, every day. That's it. American wrestling, guys. I mean, no offense to the Dagestanis, but when you look at the numbers, most of them are folk style wrestlers. Most of the champs are. And we're number one in the world right now. Even though Russia's not competing in these Olympics, it makes me sad.
Yeah.
But we did win the world championships when they were in it. So right now, America is number one, baby, for wrestling.
I love this, that if you talk to any wrestler, they are so ready to go at bat for all things American wrestling. And I have to say, you guys are kind of the backbone of people being interested in the Olympics. like more often than not, I kind of forget. I go, is it one of those Olympic years? So I love watching you guys get excited about, but I also love the fact that you were like, thank you for giving me that compliment of saying I'm a Dagestani. However, I have facts. All right, let's just go into this. So you start going into all those different facts, and that makes me laugh. But yeah, so on the broadcast, I believe it was John. Now, why would he think that? Were you wearing something? Were you doing something that seemed a little different? Because I thought he was trying to match you up with maybe you had a hat or something that you were wearing.
No, I think it was just probably my style, my look, because I do get that a lot when I, especially like right now, my hair's a little long, but if I shave it, people tell me I look like Habib or I look like one of those Russian guys, which I mean, I love it. I love it personally. But I think it was mostly the style that I have. But that's just wrestling though.
Yeah.
Like, and then, but I'm really trying to learn to put it together, learn to put my striking into my wrestling, and becoming one style instead of just like I'm just a wrestler.
Right.
You know, which is fine. I could always go back on that. And that was the difference between my first fight and my second fight. So my first fight, I was more wrestler. I was more like, just get him down, hold him down. And then my coaches were like, hey man, let your striking go this time. Like, let it go. Like you've been doing a lot of work here. Because I do a lot of Muay Thai. I do Muay Thai every day, just about. So they're like, let your striking go. And then, because when we do pads, it's like, boom, heavy kicks and level changes, heavy kicks, push kicks, punches, level changes in between my combos. And that really came out, I felt like, in that fight.
I mean, that was one thing that spoke to me as I was watching your fight. Very composed. It looked like you were well beyond your years in terms of how you did your fight. And honestly, your fight was really late in the night. So I always wonder, how hard is it to stay in that zone? Because sometimes they say, like, let's do a shakeout. Let's stay warm. Let's do this. You're doing that all night. And I'm sure it's even worse when they go, and we're going to take an intermission now at fight 7. You go, cool. All right. So how is it that you're able to stay so composed that entire time?
Well, so let's just start with the composure in the ring, and then we'll work to the back. What I was thinking, what was going on in the back, in the locker room or whatever. But the composure really comes from years of competing, years of wrestling at a high level, especially when I wrestled Division I. My first year as a starter, I struggled a lot with composure and like being out there, but being like stuck in the headlights, like deer in the headlights, like, oh, scared to open up, scared to do my moves, what you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And then I figured it out. I was just like, you know what? Like, it's not about winning or losing anymore. It's about competing your best and being able to be free of mind, free of the fear of losing. Like, it doesn't matter, because if I lose, I go home and my mom's still gonna love me. My dad's gonna love me. My wife's gonna love me. Like, they're gonna be there for me. They're not gonna be, oh, we hate you now. Like, they're really, but the pressure comes from yourself though. It comes from, you put it on yourself. But what the good thing about that is, if you put it on yourself, that means you could also take it off of yourself. So that composure just comes from me, like you said earlier, at bats, figuring out how to compete at a high level, because wrestling in the Iowa State arena and wrestling in Michigan, in Ann Arbor, in their gym, where it's like everybody hates you and wants you to lose. Like, it's normal to me now. And like years of that really translated to the cage, especially like my last year where I was able to beat All-Americans. I was able to beat national qualifiers. So I take that confidence with me. I'm like, you know what? I've been here. I've been against high level competition in wrestling. And now it's just a new rule set. It's still combat. It's just a different rule set. Now I get to hit you. Now you get to hit me.
You don't get to. You get to hit me. Let's.
No, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't want to hit you, but I get to hit my opponent. My opponent gets to hit me.
Like, you know what it is? It's just that you got so smiley about it that you're looking directly at me. You're like, I get to hit you, and I go.
After the cast, maybe. No,
like, bro, no, I don't have the hands you have. I'll keep you busy a little bit on the jiu-jitsu side. I'll use all the tricks that I know, and then after the 5th minute, I'm gonna be like, I don't know.
I don't want to be in here.
But I will tell you this: the way that you looked, again, composure was good. The technique was better, though. And you mentioned that you really wanted to make inroads on your striking, and you wanted to show that during that fight. So do you mind walking us through that fight and just from your perspective, how that went in your head?
Yeah. So round 1 was really just like let's get after him, put the pressure on, and work on the things we've been working on. Like I had the fake shot to the head kick that I threw twice, landed once. So I faked, threw the head kick, kind of I didn't land, but I know that put him on notice. And then I started throwing my push kick to keep that distance, and then right into the takedown. And then boom, and then I got that big slam just straight to the body lock. And then once I slammed him, honestly, I was like, I have this fight. In my head, I was like, all right, I got it. Like, cause that's rattling as an opponent. Cause I've been there before where something big happens and I'm like, oh my gosh, it could throw you off. If you don't have the right composure and the right mentality, that could throw somebody's whole fight off.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what happened. I feel like I slammed him and I never relinquished that pressure. The goal is pressure, 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 and stay in his face. And like, I can't wait to show that in higher level fights too, when I get hit and I you're doing the pressure, boom, you get stunned. And I can't wait to continue that pressure even after being hit. And like, I can't wait to be tested in that way. Like, I'm excited for that, especially like just moving up levels. Because now, who knows, like, people are going to see that fight and maybe like only the dogs are going to want to fight me now. And that's what I want. Like, I want to fight people that are tough. And I don't know, I'm just excited for the future and just maintaining that pressure through duration of a 25-minute fight. Like, that's the goal.
So that happens in the first round, right? We go to a second round.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure the feedback you're getting in between that rounds is like, hey, it's looking good. Like, keep doing what you're doing. Are there any corrections that you need to debate going from round 1 to 2?
Yeah, actually, because there was a time where I threw kind of a choppy overhand and was getting a little wild. And Nolan Tickman and Benio Darush, both. So Benny, UFC fighter currently, Nolan Tickman, former UFC fighter. So I have two high-level fighters in my corner. And they're just like, breathe, relax. Relax, straight punches. Don't get wild. You're getting a little wild. And then that's really what kind of calmed me down. And then I went jab. Yeah, it was jab, hook, cross, and I landed both punches. And then he just kind of gave me his back. And then that choke, I went right into the choke just because that's what me and one of my old wrestling coaches, Josh Holiday, he trains here. He does jiu-jitsu here. He's a brown belt. That's what we work on. We work on going to the choke because he's bigger than me. So when we roll, it's more situational. And then it's like we always play in that rear naked choke spot. Like, boom, just let me get it. Like, just get it quick as you can.
Yeah.
Because like in jiu-jitsu, it's a little different. It's a little slower. It's a little like, okay, he knows he's going for the choke. But when you get punched in the face, that goes out the window. So when I hit him and he gave me his back, I just slid it in real easy and was able to get it.
Like, I don't know if you could tell my wording on when it happened. It just looked so smooth. And I was a appreciator of, it did look like you had repped it out. It did look like it was just embedded in your brain. So when you're talking about those situational drills, that's where you can tell it pays off. Because it looked almost like, when you put footage in reverse, you're good. When you put footage in reverse and then it stops and then it ends in the position like that, it looked like someone rewound it and that you ended up with the back mount. And I go, that was almost too smooth. Like, man, that was really effective. So when I saw that, I just thought to myself, I was like, well, my man's really effective at what he does. So it spoke to me and it made me appreciate how you're able to transition what your wrestling base is into what is now starting as your MMA career, where I do have some issue. And you can correct me if I'm wrong here. On your camo page, because when I'm doing research, I'm looking.
Yeah.
What did you write on your camo page?
I think I put something about training jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai for a few months.
Yeah. Okay. So when I read that sort of stuff, that sounds like someone who took the trial class. It's like, I don't know, I'll try fighting and we'll see what's happening here. I read that. And I read that and I go, this man is selling me reverse wolf tickets. Like, I was so angry because I go, this wording does not match what I've seen here, because sure, you have your wrestling background, but you looked, as we mentioned, composed, but you look like this is something that makes sense for you. It looks like fighting is something you should be doing and that perhaps maybe there's more to your journey, thus us talking here. So I guess what I'm saying is you got this interview in part because I was so mad at your camo bio that I said, this is fake, and I don't believe this.
Well, I'll explain. The reason why I did that is because if I put Division I wrestler and 50 wins and I put all my accolades, no one's gonna want to fight me. And I don't want, or like, especially starting out and getting the right fight starting out. And that was partial advice that I got from my coaches. We won't name names, but you could guess.
Yeah, you can map a few things out here.
You could definitely guess that. But it was just, it's just really hard to get fights, especially at this level. And it's all about experience. And it's like a lot of guys that do come from my background go pro right away. Like a lot of guys I've wrestled with, I've competed against, they're already doing pro fights. But my camp, they're like, let's just do amateurs. Let's get you experience. Let's just start moving you up the ranks. And like, I listen to them. Like, because if it wasn't for them, I probably would be jumping into pro fights right away. Yeah. And that might not be the smartest thing. Yeah, there probably are right fights to make, but I'm trying to get as many fights as I can. So when I do come up against another wrestler or another really good guy, I have that experience to lean back on. Because if I could bust out, maybe they're doing 2 professional fights a year, maybe 3, but if I could get 4, 5, 6 amateur fights in a year, I'm ahead of them. That's how I look at it.
Okay, I'm not yelling about the logic. I'm yelling as a commentator who has limited resources and is like, okay, what am I going to say? On your, what? Let me see if I'm verifying this correctly. On your Instagram, you have all of 39 posts. So when you're trying to weave together a narrative, you're like, well, what's about this kid? What do I see here? I see him pose funny and get down and basically do one of these old Irishmen kind of things. I see he's won before. I see he's wrestled. Obviously, that's here. You like nature. You're basically sitting very nicely somewhere in a cold region. And that's about it. There's not much here. So when I go there, I was like, well, camo, let's see what it says here. I like fight. Me fight sometimes. Want fight me is essentially what it reads as to me. And I go, okay, I don't have much that I can pull off from here. And then I see you fight and I go, I see what's happening here. So I think the secret's out on you, unfortunately, now. So we'll do a second pass. That was a good first rough draft. And I think it's accomplished its goal. But you're right. It is very hard to get fights. And I did notice that one of your up next fights got canceled. So talk to me about this. What does it feel like to both have the experience of a fight getting basically canceled at the last second, and then this fight that came together within a week's time is what I believe you were telling me?
Well, yeah. So back to my first fight, I actually had a fight booked 2 weeks before that fight, right. And it fell through. It was supposed to be at the Madonna Inn with Brandon Farnsworth. He ended up fighting on the same card as me, actually, but that fight fell through. And then I was like devastated. I was just like, oh my gosh, like this sucks. And like, cause we got Airbnbs, we got everything. And we went to the Madonna Inn. We ended up having a good weekend, but then this whole UNF thing, it came together because I had people that were fighting on that card. And I was like, just give me the number. Let me figure this out. And I called them. And then they were like, yeah, we could put you on in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, bet. Like, let me do it. Like, we have this guy. Are you down? I was like, 100%. Like, let's do it. And then this one was similar. Instead of 2 weeks, I had 1 week. So my fight fell through on, I had 2 opponent changes before this fight happened, before SparStar. So I had one fight with Isaac Enriquez. He was the amateur champ over at UNF, lost on the same card as me, and then we were going to fight for number 1 contender or whatever. And then he ended up getting hurt. Hope he's okay. Hopefully we could rebook that fight because he's good, and I want to fight him too. But then they got me another guy. What's his name? He's an Armenian guy. I forget. I couldn't even say it to begin with. So,
that's perfect.
But fine. I was supposed to fight him, and then that Wednesday, so fight was going to be on Saturday, the Wednesday before, he couldn't pass his physical, something with his heart. So hopefully prayers out to him and his family. Hopefully he's okay and he get back and fighting soon. And then it was just like, dang, this sucks. Yeah. Like, what am I going to do now? And then I didn't want to fight at all. And then my teammates were like, dude, SparStar has a thing. I have his number. I have their number. Just hit them up and see if they got anything. So I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, why am I going to sit here and cry when I could just like find something else? And then that's what happened. It came together. Thank you, Brandon Flores, for taking the fight on a week notice as well. Like, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Like, because it's hard. His fight fell through too. It's hard, man. It's different in wrestling. They have people like, if somebody falls out, there's like 3 backups just waiting to get in there, just itching for that opportunity. Not hoping for injury, but just itching to get in the lineup. Like, because it's very competitive, especially at Division I. It's like you're competing with your own teammates in your weight class, like to make that spot. There's only 10 spots on the team. There's like 30 people on the team, and only 10 of you get to represent. So there's people that are just waiting in the back, waiting like, if somebody misses weight, you're in a tournament, there's 25 other people that made weight. So it's just a little different. So getting used to that is been a change because even that night, 2 fights fell out of the card that same day when they're waiting in the back. Like you are not guaranteed that you're going to go out and compete. And it happens. Look at Brian Ortega and Lopez. The fact that they got a fight is insane.
Yeah.
The fact that they got a guy to come in on 4 hours notice, that's crazy.
It legitimately surprised me because I was sitting there, we had a party. So we were talking with friends, and at the party, somebody just made mention. They were like, oh, did you see what happened? I was like, oh yeah, it's been a rough week for all the weight cuts, the different divisions. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do, catch weight. And then they go, no, it's canceled. And I was like, since when? I just got in line right now. From what I knew, they're like literally 3 minutes ago it happened. And I go, oh, that's not good. Like, oh, yikes. What? And then that's when you saw Dan stepped up, and I go, that's insane to me. But at the same point, you mentioned hungry fighters. They just want their opportunity. So nobody's wishing ill upon anybody. It's just, oh, is there an opening? I want it. So
yeah, exactly.
It's worse on the amateur level because on the amateur level, at least on the pro, you kind of know some guys in that region. You can kind of go down that list of people there. On the AMI side, it's like, well, it's kind of unique. How are you going to find somebody who's got medicals, who's actually about this person's same wavelength? Trying to match that up can be a logistical nightmare. So I don't envy that world for you, but I'm glad it did come together. And yeah, you're right. I did look down on my sheet. And when I got there, I knew one of the guys who got cut. So I had to send him a text. I was like, hey, your fight's off? He's like, yeah. Oh my God, dude, I'm so sorry. But it was my only way of double checking was to just hit him up and be like, sorry, bro, sucks. I was looking forward to commentating your fight, but it is what it is. Well, I'm glad that did end up coming through and you did end up still getting a fight. What does a celebration look like to you? Like when you get to all things said and done, like how are you celebrating a win?
Well, this particular one, we went to Denny's. And I had some pancakes and with extra syrup and a Coca-Cola. So,
oh wow! Okay,
yeah, random mix. I mean, I love soda. So I try not to drink it often, but when I do, it's like celebratory soda's the best.
Yeah,
like championship cookies. Like they taste different.
You were telling me off air. You were like, "Yo, what's in that cup over there? That Angels cup, which, by the way, has a lot of determination to it.
Go Angels, baby.
Okay, that's fine. They don't pay us here. But when you put that on, you were mentioning you're like, yeah, there's water in that, like tap water, and you're like, I hate drinking tap water. So are you one of these people who don't like drinking water?
No, I love water. Okay. It's just tap water.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just wanted to make sure. I was like, bro, I don't know if anybody's told you as an athlete, it's the gig.
No, water. I love water. Like water with electrolytes. I'll drink a gallon a day. It's just right now I didn't have any water. I drank my cup and then my wife brought me food, but we didn't have any drinks. And then there's a little spigot out there, so I'm thirsty. I was like, let me just turn this on and get some water real quick.
So when you're eating, do you need? Because I need this. I usually have like a Coke a day. So that's kind of my thing. And I used to be worse. So I'll have like a Diet Coke or a Diet whatever. And that's my one thing. But my secret trick now is all like fizzy, bubbly water, like all the LaCroix and stuff like that. And it's, as I describe it to people, I'm like, you just have to turn off the part of your brain that thinks and then just drink it because it's the carbonation that I want. And especially even after like some hard training that I'll do, if I roll for like an hour and I see like a carbonated LaCroix or something, I'm just like, give it to me, dude. Just because it's my way of making sure I get water in.
What you should try is this is non-sponsored, not a plug, but Xavier.
Okay. Yeah.
They have like root beer flavors and ginger ale flavors that actually kind of taste like soda. The Coke, their Coke is like whatever their cola.
Yeah.
It tastes more like the diet Cokes, but which some people like. I mean, personally, I don't like the diet flavor too much, but their root beer flavor, dude, it tastes like a normal root beer.
Okay.
And it's stevia extract, so from the actual stevia plant, and that's the sweetener. So it's not. There's no sugar in it. It's literally carbonated water, the natural flavors, and like it's good.
Okay,
like,
so
that's what I drink during camps.
Smart, good. But if you have a sweet tooth for that, do you have a sweet tooth for other things? Do you have some other addictions that you have? Because you just mentioned you had a certain kind of pancake order that I'm pretty sure would put certain people to shame. And you're not a big dude. You're in shape. But I'm imagining you put a hurt on some kind of sweets.
Oh, yeah, dude. I love chocolate. Chocolate chip, chocolate brownie. So I got this chocolate chip pancake with bananas on it. And some name. It was the chocolate, I forget. It was like a big stack though. And oh man. But I love, from Trader Joe's, they make these ice cream sandwiches with the cookie and the chocolate chips and the vanilla. Oh dude, you know what I'm talking about. Absolutely. Dude, my mom, the other day I had some and then my mom ate like the last one. I left it there. She said, oh, sorry, I'll go buy you more.
Oh.
Or dude, now you got me thinking too. My other one that I like are the brownie with the coffee ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Those ones too.
Okay.
Those are good.
Okay, I can see that. I'm just I work in entertainment, and sometimes there are what we call crafty. So just kind of things that appear on the outside where you go like, oh, I want that, and they give it to you. Now it's good because you don't have to pay for it. It's bad because you do pay for it. So there are days when people are like, yo, Raph, load up, get whatever you want. I go, I have to work this off, dude. Like, I don't know if you know what it's like to have somebody trying to simulate murder on you to lose weight. It's not always the funnest. And they go, okay. So when I do get the stuff like that, I'll like afford myself one sweet. And I go, all right, you can give me that ice cream thing.
Well, that's the way to do it, man. You don't want to deprive yourself too much because then life sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you could have a once or twice a week or you, even if you worked hard and you're like, you know what, I want an ice cream right now.
Yeah.
No one's going to stop me. Like,
I'm an adult. You can't tell me what to do. Get out of here.
I'm a full-grown man.
Absolutely. No. I like the idea that every once in a while, if I'm in a room like this and I'm about to train or whatever, and I know it's Saturday, right?
Yeah.
I look around and I start doing the math in my head. Everybody's like, I think I'm done training. And I'm like, no, you're not. And they go, what do you mean? I go, you're rolling for another 20 minutes with me. And they're like, but I'm done. And I was like, I'm not. And here's why. Fatty wants a beer tonight. And I really have to do the work now because if I don't do this work, I'm putting off more stuff to do next week. And when they're like, oh, what is this all about? I go, listen, dude, some of you guys do this to go compete, win worlds. Some of you guys do this because you're fighters. I do this to eat what I want. Fair. So, you know, sorry, bud, you got 20 more minutes with an upper belt. So it's not really a choice. It's just what we're doing. And they always tell me, they're like, you could always not eat it. And I was like, you could shut up right now. Like, bro, we can all make decisions that are better.
I just whoop your ass real quick and then eat some ice cream after.
I mean, I like to tell people, I'm like, I'm a choose your own adventure role. So they choose their own fate as they roll with me. I'm like, if you want to roll slow, we'll roll slow. If you want to roll crazy, sure. It's not what I want to do, but okay, that's what we do. So that's kind of my MO on how I approach things.
Man, when people, let me just tell this story real quick about eating, like that we're on it. And this is, not a lot of people understand, especially like when you're cutting weight a lot. And like, it's just not normal for people. But growing up as a wrestler, especially in high school, heavyweights do not have to cut weight because it's 285 max. And most heavyweights in high school are like 260, 230, 240, maybe 250. And this is John Sutherland. I love him. Shout out to you, John. But I was 8 pounds over after this tournament and I had to make weight for the next day. So I was literally cutting weight all night. So I come into the room and he's sprawled out on the bed. He has Chinese food everywhere.
Oh no.
He's like, hey, Brown, you want some of this? And I would just start yelling at him, like, get that out of here. Like, what are you doing? Like, I have to freaking put on a plastic suit and go run on a treadmill for 7 hours. Like, it's just funny. And like, just talking about food just brings up so much memories of just like cutting weight and like staring at food. Or what I used to do is, and hey, this is a trick for any little wrestler out there that's growing up. If you're doing a morning run, grab an orange, put it in the freezer before you go, and when you come back, you have like a perfect little slushie.
Okay.
Yes.
That's smart. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I used to do. I would wake up in the morning because one, it's good to work out, but I was maintaining my weight, so getting extra workouts in allows you to eat more. So I was like, all right, let me do my morning runs, and every morning before I went, I would peel the orange, put the orange inside the freezer, go on my run, come back, have a perfect little slushie. It's perfect.
That's a smart thing.
Grapes too. Grapes, any fruit. This
is some good ingenuity. And honestly, these are, tips that you'll put in your future book, I'm sure. But I like the idea that you have come up with what works for you. Everybody has to figure out their system.
Mm-hmm.
I have certain cheats that I do. I do meal prep at the top of the week. So I'll usually make all my stuff. And, I got a guy now working with me on some strength and conditioning stuff. And he'll actually have prompts that say, like, what'd you eat today? And he goes, I'll be as intrusive as you want me to be. And I go, okay. So like 4th of July, I was like off grid. Nope.
I'm not replying.
Don't get to know what I'm having. And he's like, I promise you it's not worse than anybody else. I was like, I'm promising you don't know that. So he and I go back and forth on that. But I would return back to Denny's though. So Denny's was the selected place. You guys must have gone crazy there.
Yeah. It was I had my roommates from college. A couple of them came. They came and watched the fight. And then my parents were like, what do you want to go eat? And I was like, I don't know. There's really nothing open. And then they're like, hey, Denny's? I was like, oh, yeah. Once someone said Denny's, that was over. Because it's like, that was the spot I remember in high school. I don't know if it still is, but they had the $4 all-you-could-eat pancakes. And that's where we would go in high school after, we go to a party or something. It'd either end up at In-N-Out or at a Denny's. Or after homecoming, we went at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
We got all you could eat pancakes and we were just so many memories there.
I can tell you things have not changed that much because I am older than you and I was at those 2 same places. So in college, I remembered going to Denny's and I had a certain order. I would get moons over my hammy. It's like 12:30, 1 a.m. at night. I just remember looking at these people being like, we might be here for 2 hours. I don't know. I feel so bad to those waiters and waitresses. And one of my friends, we wanted to get back together recently from college. And they're like a little group of us. We're like, well, what do you guys want to do? And they're like, we're going to hit up Denny's at the end of the night. I was like, I think we have different spots. And also, we shouldn't be out that late. Like we're all a little bit older now. So I don't know that any of us really needs to cram a Denny's. I go, but in the event that it does happen, I do have my order ready. They're just like, oh, okay. So, well, that's awesome, man. So let's do this. You win. Congratulations on that. I hope you enjoyed the fruits of your labor, of everything that you were putting here, because you definitely showcased a very good version of yourself that night. And that made me very happy for you, your team. And that was really, really dope. What I would like to do is go back. So this is your origin story episode. I'd like to know, where does kind of wrestling, I assume, happen first, or did jiu-jitsu happen first? Because you mentioned that you did do jiu-jitsu earlier, but I don't know that it precedes wrestling. So where does that kind of fall in your history?
So played soccer growing up and football. My parents I was always an athlete. And growing up, my parents didn't have the parental controls on, so they never really cared. So I was watching Family Guy and South Park when I'm like 12 years old. But then Spike TV would come on and like shows like Mansers. You remember Mansers? There's that show. It probably corrupted my little mind, but watching shows like Mansour, and then the UFC would come on, and like I loved watching Frankie Edgar because I was always smaller. You know, I mean, I'm not a big guy. I'm truly a 45er or maybe even a 35er. We'll find out in the future, but I'm not a big guy. So when I watched Frankie Edgar fight for the lightweight title and he was smaller than everybody, I was just like, wow, if he could do that, I want to do something like that. And then I begged my mom. There's a jiu-jitsu gym like by our house. So my mom, my dad started taking me, and the guy's name was Fabio. He was black belt there. He trained under some Gracie. I mean, there's so many of them. Who knows? But I started doing jiu-jitsu a couple times a week, but soccer was our main focus. So I would do that whenever I could, and I got one stripe, and then sixth grade I kind of stopped going, and then eighth grade I went back a little bit, but it was never really never competed in it before. It was just doing it for fun because I liked it. But me and one of my teammates, Dave Kirk, one of my best friends, he was the best man at my wedding. He we played soccer together, and I got him to come in and do jiu-jitsu a little bit, and we would always just roll around. Like, we would wrestle each other. He was my wrestling partner. We would roll around, and then he started wrestling. He was a grade above me. He started wrestling and started whooping the crap, like whooping me bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do that too. And that's kind of what got me into wrestling, was my boy Dave Kirk. Shout out to you. You're the bomb. I love you, brother. Yeah, there you are right there. I love you, brother. You're the bomb. Freaking thank you for getting me into wrestling. And he was a beast in his own right. But another thing we used to do, we had a pair of UFC gloves and boxing gloves.
Oh, no.
And my parents would leave, and then we would rock, paper, scissors. And we didn't do the 1-in-1 crap. It was like, rock, paper, scissors. Do you want the UFC gloves or do you want the boxing gloves? And we would throw down in my living room on the tile. We did not.
Okay, let me stop here. I did some math in my head, and I was starting to budget this out. I played soccer for years. I know how this goes. I know when you and your buddy start to scrap, you're basically wrestling on the grass. So that's what you mentioned that. I was like, oh no, I know. And now I'm like, dude, I can't think of training on anything other than mat.
I know,
So I'm like,
right?
what were we thinking? Okay, so that's part one. Now you're telling me we upped the ante. We were like, that's not good enough. Let's go to this tile in my parents' house where they can see the remnants of us getting all of the thrashing from you. So did you ever mess up your parents' living room or areas from doing this?
You just flip the cushion, dude. No, no, so we did. I mean, my parents, oh my gosh, we did break the wood in the underneath the couches, because it would go more than just the tile. We would end up falling on the couches and full on fighting.
I'm pretty sure you were thinking well, the couch is a soft spot. And you're like, okay, dump. Oh, wait, eek. What's the eek?
Yeah, exactly. But that's just what we did. Me and my homie Dave, that's just how we grew up. And we were different than everybody else. No one else, he was the only person I knew growing up that was down to do stuff like that. And we had each other, and we would straight up fight. We'd punch each other, kick each other. And I mean, it's not much different now. A little bit more relaxed. We would full on fight, but we loved it. It wasn't like we were angry. We just loved it.
You're scrapping with your buddy. It's hard to explain. And I feel like a lot of us find this because, obviously glasses. So I was not necessarily going to be the guy who looks like I'm going to fight, but I would never start the fights. I was just always the guy who, if they tried to pick on, I was like, well, I play sports too, so this is fine. And then they'd get really frustrated because they couldn't beat me up. They're just like, why are you still going? And I go, I don't know. It's my superpower. And lo and behold, now when I roll with people, they're like, you're good defense. How does this work? And I go, it's what I've always done. It's just what my gift is. Some people are really good at passing. Some people are really good at inventing moves. Some people are really good at gi. Some people are good at wrestling. Some people are good with striking. My gift was always I'm going to take whatever energy you're putting out on me and probably redirect it. And I think jiu-jitsu was the right landing spot for me. But I do remember distinctly. So you have a friend. So was he your size? How much bigger was he than you?
He's a little bit smaller than me, but we were always roughly the same size.
Okay, so you're lucky.
Yeah.
My guy, the guy who I credit for getting me into all this, a really dear friend of mine, also in my wedding, he was bigger than me. So he's 6'1". He was the athlete of our school. And like he liked rolling with me because he could literally deadlift powerbomb me. Like he could pick me up, no problem. At the time, I was about $140, and he liked it because he's like, "You're durable, and I can't hurt you." And I was like, "And I for sure can't hurt you." Because even at like me throwing my best combinations is like this dude, you know. So to this day now, you know, at first he didn't want to come do jujitsu. I was offering, I was like, "Hey man, come." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know, man." And I go, "It's not what you think it is. It like, I'm not enacting revenge here. I just want you to see why I think this is cool and why."
You didn't want to get bullied.
He didn't. Well, because the thing is, he's still bigger than me and he's still in great shape. But it makes less sense if you're in great shape and someone is now beating you up that is not even in as good a shape as you are. So he came and he was like, "This is the real deal, dude." And I remember the first time I had like an armbar in, he didn't even want to tap. And I'm just like,
Please.
"My man, listen, I'm very good at making sure you're safe. I can only do so much." And I just remembered the most reluctant of like, okay. I thought, all right, that's how competitive this guy is with me. But I consider him a dear friend. So I think everybody should have one of those people. And I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Does he train now? Do you still like?
Yeah, he's trained a little bit, but now he's busy in his career now. I mean, he didn't take it. He was a really good wrestler, really talented, really hard worker, like one of the most athletic, hard worker guys I've ever met in my life. But he just went down a different path. But I mean, he's gonna be successful in whatever he does. And like, there's a part of me, I'm like, dude, please fight. Like, you'd be so good. But he doesn't want it.
No.
There's nothing
No. Don't do that. I can tell what's wrong with your pitch right now from up top. You don't start with, "Hey, go fight." You say with, "Hey, come train." And then you hit him with the fight because you're already pot committed now. There's no surprise, despite what your camo profile says. You're in. This dude, the way you get him in, you say, "Hey man, come train." I mean, you were good at wrestling. You give him the compliments. Like, I'm sure they'll come back to you, no problem. And then maybe after 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks, like, "Hey man, yeah, you looking pretty good. When do you get a fight? We should get you fighting, bro." And then see what happens.
Yeah, I know him. He's set. We've talked about it. He's done jujitsu and he's trained and he does love it and like he's always down to scrap, but he's just, he's in his career. He's got other goals now, and I respect that too.
I find it very amusing that you're the one that suggested, like, we got to get him to fight. I'm like, bro, what plans do you have in your head? I like that you're like talking me down, like I'm the one that suggested, "I think you should fight. I think you should bring him back here and fight." It's like, no, you suggested that, sir. So it's fine. It's good. You found this. I always like to ask people, like, do you remember your first jiu-jitsu class? Like, what did your first jiu-jitsu class feel like? And maybe there's a version of it when you're a kid. And what does one feel like when you return back after wrestling?
Well, when I was a kid, man, my first jiu-jitsu class, I was just like, I love this. Like, this is crazy. And it was probably because, I mean, like, I was going with, there wasn't really a lot of kids. It was just like I showed up and there was like other adults there and like I thought I was so good because I'm like, oh, I'm getting arm bars on this full grown man. It's like, no, this guy's letting you do it.
Right.
But my first jiu-jitsu class back after wrestling was more like, this is harder than I remember. Like, what the heck are we doing right now? Like, heel hooks, like inverting. I'm like, well, hold on, pause. Like, this is hard. It was definitely different. I actually thought I would pick up jiu-jitsu easier than striking, and it's kind of been the opposite. It's been harder to pick up some of the jiu-jitsu because it's just different.
It is.
Learning to use your legs and like, I mean, like my pressure and like my basic stuff is good, but learning like more details of certain moves, it is a little harder than I thought.
So I like to tell people, it's kind of like having a head start on speaking a new language. Like you speak a similar set of words. You're just learning how to put sentences together, where other people who are black belts can make paragraphs.
That's a really good analogy, right?
So when you get to that part, you have words and they're very good words. And now you're learning how to conjugate them. But you might be faster than the other guy because you speak a similar language. So when I see a wrestler come into our rooms, I go over to them and I say like, "Hey, you're a very valuable training partner to us. Like, you should know that up top. If you can take that perspective with the humility that comes from probably getting tapped by some of these nerds, you're going to go really far. But if you cannot handle this part, we cannot get this part." And I'm always like, but I start by saying, I want to take away your spazziness and your intensity. And I want to give you technique. And I'll give it back to you in like X many days, a year, whatever. But I tell them, I'm like, give me a year to give you full technique. And then I'll let you go all out. I don't want to take away your superpower. If your superpower is being a bullet train and going head on, that's a skill. And especially if you fight. So one of the guys who I recently worked with, wrestling background, really good. I mean, messing me up in wrestling, right? And then we do jiu-jitsu rounds. And I was like, okay, cool. And he's just like, dude, you're messing me up worse here than I am in yours. And I was like, I don't feel that way. I feel you're messing me up more. I go, but I know how to contain it. I just know that it's foolish to think I'm going to beat you at wrestling rather than saying, ooh, I don't think I'm going to be a wrestler. I think I'm going to pick up stuff from you that keeps me safe. And so that when I am wrestling with somebody, at the very least, I'm not like getting injured. So when he like got that approach, he's like, okay, cool. So he's going real spazzy, real crazy. And I go, nope, 6 months. And then you can do that again. And after
learn technique.
After 6 months, then he's an assassin. Then it's like, what did you do to him? And I go, I just taught him some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you bring that intensity with the technique. Oh, dangerous.
Absolutely.
Dangerous. And that's where I'm starting to get right now is the technique is with the intensity. And then that's something I had to learn in striking too, is like I brought that intensity with me and I'm hitting people hard and I don't even really mean to. And it's like, because it's just like, I'm going. Like I got one mode and then now I'm starting to realize I'm finally starting to get down like, oh, I could control myself and I could just touch you.
Yeah.
And then learning that though is because then if you could touch somebody, now I could bring the power when I want to.
Correct.
And then same thing in jiu-jitsu. Like I end up in these positions because I just spazzed out and we scrambled and I got here. But now it's like, okay, now I could lead the scramble to this position at a different, because that's what I think wrestlers are really good at is that intensity, because that's what we preach. It's like when you're in a wrestling practice, in a wrestling room, it is, we are here to get better and beat each other. we're here to fight each other. Like that wrestling's more of a fighting mentality than like a jiu-jitsu gym. Yeah. But when you bring them together, that's the art, I think. Yeah. I think when you could bring both those things together and bring the intensity and the technique and the chillness of jiu-jitsu, like and mix it, then it's beautiful. Because that's where the good jiu-jitsu guys like Charles Oliveira, they have that intensity. They have that fight. Benio Darush, he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he has that intensity with him. But like you were saying, he's able to control it. He's able to pull back. He's able to bring it. He's able to, and that's what's cool about martial arts.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, and again, I'm speaking in the house that he built, but there was clearly a jiu-jitsu background that was so good, like beyond a lot of people, right? And then he made this commitment to really get his hands in a better place. And then it became like, oh shit, like, are you guys watching his fights? Like his stand-up is really solid. And I love seeing that progression from people. And what I like about him guiding your journey is you're seeing him say like, I'm going to give you some cheat codes. I'm going to show you some pathways, given your background, your experience, that are going to maximize where you can go. And knowing those cheat codes, knowing you have a background in something different, that now you have a guide who's like, similar but different, here's some suggestions. And then somebody to go like, oh, by the way, here's the jiu-jitsu part too. Super dope. So very happy about that. I also ask people this main question, which is, when did you actually fall in love with jiu-jitsu? Because to do this as a career, it's part of it. But now you're slowly segueing toward a more professional life as both a mixed martial artist, a fighter, and as a coach. So when did you really find that you were immersed with jiu-jitsu or MMA?
Honestly, I've known I wanted to fight since I started doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Like, and I guess I first fell in love with jiu-jitsu is when I first went in. I was just like, this is amazing. When I was a kid, like it's like 6th grade, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I love it. And I think it's just, I always had, I never had personal space growing up. Like I'm always trying to wrestle my dad, like, or like grab people and be like, hey, you can't touch everybody. You like, stop. They're like, dude, get, like, you don't know this guy. Why are you grabbing his leg? Like, get off him. But I really fell in love with it the moment I stepped on a mat, man, like honestly. And then I fell more in love with it as I got into high school when I started like wrestling. and I just loved. And I got amazing coaches. Like, so when I moved here, and we didn't move here for wrestling, guys. I swear, we moved here because of circumstances with my parents. My mom got a job and stuff, so we moved back. We moved back to California from Florida, and the only reason why I went to Esperanza High School is because my cousins went there. So my cousin went there, and then I was zoned for Canyon High School, which is right down the road too. They're in the same league. But then I was like, my cousin's there. My mom's like, we'll just send you to Esperanza since you know somebody there. Use their address, whatever. I mean, I'm sure they can't get me in trouble now.
You know what? We're gonna alert the authorities right now.
I know.
Let's get, you know what? All those accolades right off the table now.
I wouldn't be surprised. But no. And my first year there was the Holiday's first year there. The Holiday family, all of them were Division I wrestlers. Christian Holiday, Josh Holiday, Sam Holiday, Daryl Holiday, and Craig Holiday. But he wasn't really there too much. He's a lawyer, big cat. He came in sometimes, but he was too busy. But the fifth coach was Josh Rybeck, and they all wrestled at the Division I level. So they all had like amazing technique, mentality, just great things for life. And they truly molded me to who I am. Like, and then Benny was always around. Benny was coached, partly wrestling coached by Josh Holiday. And then he was always coming to do the FCA meetings in my school. He would come into our wrestling room sometimes. So I've known him since I was in high school, but I didn't really start coming here until like a few years ago when I was in Bakersfield. I would come home, and then I would come in and I would train, like, kind of. Like, I would just go and I would wrestle. I would go to their sparring classes on Tuesdays, and I would just wrestle these fighters, and I had no idea. So I started, though, consistently training so last June is when I, like, really committed. Because I finished wrestling, and then I was like, all right, let me really commit to striking and jiu-jitsu. So I've been training fully for a little over a year now.
Well, it's good to see. I mean, you obviously have good progress markers from that with an extensive wrestling background. And it just goes to show if this is kind of the progress marker of where you're at, a lot could be coming very well for you. But, there's a few things I kind of want to just touch on, and then we're going to kind of circle this out. But what I do want to know is, what have you found has been the best thing that you've been able to transfer or translate from wrestling into doing jiu-jitsu? Because here's what I should say on my side. I told you I worked with a wrestling guy, right? I have kind of set sail on the wrestling side where I'm like, I'm a little too old. I can learn it, but I can never master it. So I'm happy to go visit there, but I'm still intrigued as to what works or what people have loaned from that background from wrestling that they felt or that they've picked up from the jiu-jitsu side and kind of merged.
I think it's the pressure. I think it's the pressure that wrestlers bring. Because if you could just keep putting pressure on somebody, like constantly, like continuing to trying to pass, and they're just surviving. To me, that's winning. Like, if they're just trying to survive, it's like, okay, I get to side control and they get back to guard, and I just continue, and I continue. I'm jumping on their neck. Even though I might not be getting the submission, it's that pressure and that mentality is I'm like that blood in the water type of mentality. Like, I smell that blood, I'm attacking you, and I'm not going to stop attacking you until they say time or until you don't want to go anymore. Like, that's what I've
walking with people now that I've learned more when you're like, people don't have personal space. I'm just going in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, dude, we're off the mats right now. This is a sanctioned, non-sanctioned fight. So, but when you mentioned pressure and you mentioned that has served you well, when did you feel like you kind of had that? Because I don't know that you had that maybe when you were a kid, but it's something you had to recognize when you probably came back to jiu-jitsu. So how quickly did you recognize, like, oh, I have kind of a superpower here?
Probably when they were like, my coaches and stuff were telling me, like, continue that pressure, continue to use that pressure you have. Because I recognized it that was my style of wrestling. My style of wrestling was a very pressured base. Like, my goal was to get you as tired as possible, because you might be a better wrestler than me. And same thing in jiu-jitsu. You could be a better jiu-jitsu practitioner. But if I could get you tired and not go anywhere and survive with you long enough and keep that pressure, eventually one of us is gonna break.
Yeah.
And it's just who breaks first. And you see it all the time, like those guys that just don't go anywhere. Like again, like a Charles Oliveira, he's that, especially those last fights where he started winning. Like he was getting knocked down, beat up, but he never went anywhere, and he stayed in their face, and he kept that same pressure and didn't back down, and that's what won him those fights.
Yeah.
Is not backing down, not being afraid of being hurt, embracing it. In wrestling, it's embrace the grind, embrace that. And it's the mentality too. The mentality I bring from wrestling to jiu-jitsu and to fighting. It's like it's served me well because it's embrace the suck, embrace that, because that's what it's about, man. Like to me, anything in life that's easy isn't worth doing. Anything in life where you're not suffering a little bit to get something, it's not worth it to me. So like when I could suffer and be hurting and then turning that like this sucks into thank you for this sucking, you could go so far. And like that's what I learned in wrestling was like embrace the suck. Like this sucks, but be grateful for it. Like we get to do this. Like we don't have to do any of this. We get to do it. Like we're blessed to have our arms and our limbs and a brain and like to go and roll with somebody and like compete. Like it's the best. Like nothing beats that. Like I'm truly blessed. Like I don't know if I chose this life. Like I know it's cliche. I didn't choose it. It kind of chose me. Like I've always wanted to be a fighter when I first started watching them fight. How, like I said earlier, it was always like I wanted to just be an athlete, football player.
Mm-hmm.
But as like I got older and I found out what I truly loved, it's like even when I was wrestling, I'd be working out on my own and being like, I want to fight. Like I'm thinking about fighting when I should be thinking about the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And that might have hurt me a little bit in wrestling, but I'm so excited to be fighting, and whatever happens, happens, man. Like I'm along for the ride. Like I have a plan set out, but plans don't always go according to. So you just have to be able to roll with the punches, and I'm going to take this thing as far as I can, man. And whatever happens, it's God's will. And that's just how I look at it.
Good for you, man. And again, it's a great start. Very much looking forward to what happens next for you. I wouldn't say that I have notes or feedback on a lot of things for you, but when I did have to do the Instagram stalking, I did see something that I thought could use a little work.
Yeah, let me know. Tell me.
Absolutely. So I saw that you're great with kids. You do a lot of kids coaching.
Yeah.
You're doing that soon here over at Kings in Anaheim. But I did notice one thing. Like there was a moment where you let one of your kids hit you with a clothesline. And I was like, the selling, it needs a little work. You know what I mean? It could pass for some kids. It's fine. I just go, my man's not quite used to taking a bump in the pro wrestling world, but he's good at one.
You didn't like my bump?
It was okay. You know what I mean? Like I gave you a B- off of it.
I'll take it.
It's just, I think for somebody with your potential, you have a lot more to exude, but you kind of no-sold that kid's finisher. That kid, that's his finishing move was that clothesline. And you're just kind of like, womp. Yeah. And then you kind of like kept the eyes over a little bit. And I was like, I 100% as a kid would have been like, I think this is staged. I think I should have this guy, but
that's funny. That's hilarious that you brought that up.
It's legitimate because again, this is stuff that I research, I look, and I go, I can't bring this up during the fight. This has no relevancy to the fight. It's just funny.
Oh, so you were looking me up during the
not during the fight, beforehand.
Okay.
I do let's be very clear. I do research before, and what spoke to me was your personality. And so that's also part of the reason why I was like, a good fight helps, but a good personality is one that makes me say, like, I'll have a conversation with that guy. Like, I'll talk to him because there's something that I haven't seen. And what happens is if you give me like a little spark of fire, it makes me go like, that's worth talking to them. That's like doing an interview that you kind of see something, because a lot of this is a crapshoot. A lot of this is being like, I mean, will we get along for an hour? Will we be able to talk for an hour? Some guys are very much like, I like to fight. Period. Done.
Fight me. I fight, you fight me.
I'm like, wait, I'm gonna fight again now? Shit, I think I volunteered to fight him.
Dude, there's such another aspect to fighting than just fighting.
Yeah.
People forget that. It's like you have to be marketable. You have to be able to talk. You have to have that extra thing. And that's what's amazing is like for you coming and like reaching out to me, like I was so grateful. I'm like, oh heck yeah, I'll talk. Like, because to me, it's like, this is the beginning, right? Like, first podcast, I only had my second fight, and it's just like, this is amazing. I look at it like it's just practice too.
Yeah.
It's like for when you are on stage and there's actually, like, no offense to the amateur shows, but there's actually people who are watching and they're more invested in it and being able to, it's all practice at that point, and like people, I was in the background and they were kind of talking about, like, they're like, they're comparing UNF and SparStar,
Yeah.
which I like both promotions. Like, they're the best in Southern California for sure. Like, what they're trying to do and what they're doing is amazing. And they got different techniques. Like, UNF is more like, let's get you out there, let's do these interviews, let's do this. And guys are like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like doing that. It's hard. They're like, I just want to fight. It's like, dude, this is part of it. And the fact that they're giving you an opportunity, look at it as practice. Like, get you comfortable being on the mic. So like when you go and you make your first call out, you're not like, I want to fight you and you're ugly. Like, like you want to be clear and concise with your words. And that's like, if you saw, I called somebody out
All that.
and I stumbled a little bit, but I was able to, like, okay, next time I'm not going to stumble. Like, this is where I stumbled. I kind of tripped over my words a little bit. And then if you could practice that, that's a whole nother leg up you're going to have on other people. Like when they're looking, when UFC fighters, they look at your fighting 100%, but you don't think they look on your Instagram and see, okay, what does this guy do? How does he talk? Can we market him?
Well, poor Hemplo. I don't know if you saw, but the fighter of the year, as per the ESPYs, was Sean O'Malley. Over Perea, over. I think they mentioned somebody else that I just go like, I don't know.
He won it over all those guys?
But it's a fan vote. And when that happens, or even if it's not a fan vote, and I thought it was a fan vote, so if I'm wrong, just tell me. But even if you don't have it as a fan vote, what it means is they're connecting. And it's not to say he's a bad fighter. He's a really good fighter. He's a lot of hype, which he does to sell fights, and that's good for him. But at his core, he's a very good fighter. Yeah. And I think that's what people do. They're like, I don't like that hype. And it's like, well, he's a good fighter, so he did win. And he's beaten some very reputable people. What I see for people at the very beginning of their career is always like, the spark's there. Okay, let's direct this. So when I hear people, because I know some people don't want to do these things, and I just tell them, I was like, you haven't done one with me. And they go, yeah. I was like, just see what happens. Just sit down and see if you don't enjoy this experience. And they're always like, okay, cool. The other thing that happens is, and obviously time being what it is that I always like to tell people, you should try to roll with the people. And here's why. If you are an athlete, you come in thinking this is a different world, when in actuality, there's more overlap than you think. And it's like, well, I go train. I just don't fight. And I don't presume that I'm a fighter on your level. I just say, like, there's a connection that happens when you train with people that you go like, oh, I know this person now a little bit better. So I always offer. I always be like, well, I think you should try to, because then if somebody's not good with their words, they at least feel a little bit like, I don't have a story to tell, but I kicked your ass for 20 minutes. And they're like, okay, well, now you got a story. That's a great story. Or it becomes, hey, now I know you like to do X guard. Tell me where you learned that. Why do you do it like this? And watch those interviews become better. So I think what you're going to see over time is more interviewers find unique ways, whether it's, I'm going to take you for food, or I'm going to go drinking with you, or we're going to go outside like this. For me, it's always, I think the basis of my show is always, I train. I don't mind training with people, but I like to catalog where they are on their journey. So if it's very beginning, great. But if I've commentated your fight, there's a natural overlap of experience that happened. Maybe for 20 minutes in both of our lives where I watched what you did. I liked it. And I said, all right, it's worth a conversation. And then you do those little promotional things. So that's why I kind of was like, all right, let's see how this goes. And again, a great story, great beginning to it. And we'll put a little bookmark here at this part of your journey. And perhaps in the future, we revisit it. and we continue on that conversation because it does look like you have more that you're going to be doing
Oh
in
yeah,
the near future.
definitely. We'll definitely be around.
What I would like to do, though, to close it out, see this? This is your camera over here.
All right, yeah.
What I want you to do, look at that camera, and I want you to thank anybody you want to thank for helping you on this last fight in your camp, and also give out shout outs to sponsors. And I believe you told me that your dad wrote a book.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily fit into the world of MMA, but if my dad wrote a book, you better believe I would be talking about everything.
Yeah.
So that camera's all yours, sir.
So thank you to everybody on this journey. And I mean, it's just the beginning, and I can't wait for what the future holds. I thank all my wrestling coaches from high school, my colleges, everybody. I mean, there's so many. I mean, we'd be here for 30 minutes if I had to, 30 more minutes if I had to talk about all of you individually, but you know who you are. And I thank all of you. My dad, my biggest sponsors, my dad. So Crazy is Crazy Does, available on Amazon. It's a horror book about a serial killer. It's serial killers meet Forrest Gump, essentially. The main protagonist meets up with all these historical serial killers, and it's an amazing journey. Please look it up on Amazon. And then also King's MMA, King's Anaheim, come in here. We have classes for kids, adults, beginners, advanced, everybody. And then the training lab, if you could kind of see that window right there, right there, there's a weight room in there where we're going to be doing the Garage 2.0. Coach Sam Calavita, if you've heard of the Garage, you know, we're going to be doing the 2.0. I will be one of the personal trainers there. So please, we'll be starting that up here later this month. And there's a recovery center that we're doing here at Kings Anaheim. A lot of good things. Please check it out. An amazing place by Benny Darush, like amazing gym. Please come in if you can.
The gym is beautiful, by the way. Like I'm thoroughly impressed. When you mentioned, you're like, yeah, you can come through. I was like, oh, okay. And I walk in, I go, oh, y'all super big time. Man, this is very nice. Well, let me do this. I just want to say congratulations on again for a great fight result, sir. I know that's a lot of hard work, and I wouldn't do this interview unless I thought you have a bright future ahead of you. So I look forward to seeing what that future is, and I hope to be able to be on the other side of the call, and hopefully not continuing to call you a Dagestani, professing a little bit more love and respect for the USA.
Yes, sir. Hey, call me Dagestani all you want. It is a compliment. Those guys are something else, man.
You know what? It's just funny to me that I'm like, I always tell people, I'm like, the other thing we can do whenever we do these interviews is we can clean up a little bit of what happens live because you don't know. And when he's like, yeah, something happened live, I go, well, I didn't. Oh, that's John. Yeah, I should probably clean that up. All right, it's all good.
It's all good, John. I take it as a compliment. I love you, man. You guys are good. That's a long night. I mean, there's like 30 fights on there just about.
You know, it's that there's a lot of fights, and then sometimes you see them in pencil get added, or, you know, my favorite is always, I don't know if fight's happening or not, and then all of a sudden it's on a card, and I go, where did this come from?
You just slide it on.
Yeah, they're just like,
so, by the way, we got 8 more fights.
Link. And I just go like, all right, I'll try to pimp this kid out as much as I can. But I will say this. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to put a pin on this, but I'm going to close this up here in a second. But when I do, we will make a effort the next time that we are together to actually train in person.
Okay.
Because I know you have to run off. So I'm going to run with, like, he was scared. So, like, see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not scared.
Dude, he's got glasses, man. Clark Kent. He might be.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I have going on here. But we got to get him out of here in a second. So I'm going to do this one very quickly. All right, guys, here's what I'm going to tell you guys. Grappling Hour. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have no idea what you want to like, comment, or subscribe about, well, you like this interview. Great. You subscribe because hopefully you like the way I interview. Great. The comment. What can you put in the comment section right now? Why don't you tell us what your order at Denny's is? Okay. Now, I don't know what it is. I already told you mine's Moons over Miami. You may have something different. It's the wrong choice. Moons over Miami is the right choice. If you want to get pancakes like this young man over here, you go to IHOP. Everybody knows that. But my man, I'm sure things being what they were, he had to make do with his surroundings. So
yeah, Denny's was the only thing open.
Don't say that. Don't say that. We could get a Denny's sponsorship in the future.
No, I mean, Denny's. Well, that's the thing. They're the only thing that's open, baby. You gotta be ready.
So, last couple of things.
They're always open. They never go anywhere.
last couple of things. Like, comment, subscribe, of course. Tell us what your Denny's order is. You can go to patreon.com/grappling hour. Go support me, $5 a month. You can see the interviews 30 days before anybody else. And for a few extra dollars, you can get you some extra content that's not available anywhere else. You can also find us on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And my friends, do not forget to join us on the Discord and buy some merch. Show us some love. Grappling Hour shirts and hoodies, all of that jazz. Ladies and gents, that's going to do it for us here at the Grappling Hour. It has been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.
Perfect.